the coast or been to the coast the storms on the water seem to come much more quickly than you're anticipating. So suddenly a boring morning turned into a tumultuous afternoon as the winds picked up, the thunder rolled in, the lightning started flashing, the rain started pouring. It became too much for our little sailboat, so we actually dropped the sail, we put down an anchor, and we hunkered down in the boat, soaking wet, a little more terrified than our macho selves would allow each other to believe. And then as that happens, we're sitting there, some of us praying, some of us just anxious. We hear a rumbling out in the distance, and we all turned at the same time to see a waterspout forming a couple hundred yards from the boat coming our way. You know, I don't know what you would have done. I don't know that I'd say we were terrified, maybe a little, but I guarantee you that if Jesus had been in the boat that day, I would have been shaking him awake to say, come help us out. You see, storms are a part of life. Storms come on wedding days, they come on funeral days, they come on very ordinary Tuesdays. Storms are a part of life. Sometimes we can go a very long time without what we understand as a storm. Sometimes it feels like we haven't had a storm in a long time. That's great. Maybe sometimes it feels like the storms are one right after another, and it's cloudy day after cloudy day, and rain one after another, so that you even forget what the sun even looks like. Some lives are more like that. It seems that a storm waits for no person, except for Jesus, of course. So we're in the middle, almost closing up the series we're calling Bible Stories Every Kid Should Know, and You Should Too. We're looking at this idea of story, because story, it shapes the way we understand our place in this world. And more importantly, these Bible stories shape the way we understand ourselves in the context of God's overarching love of us. We started out looking at Noah, the covenant of Noah, which says, I love you no matter what. Then we looked at David and Goliath. Brad led an awesome sermon in that. It says, you know, of all the giants in your life, they're crazy things, but as you have faith, God will fight your battles for you. And last week we looked at kind of a curveball, not a traditional children's story, but one that's super important, the story of Esther. That says, you are in a particular place, at a particular time, to reach those who are powerless, to help out those who are powerless. And so today, we're looking at Jesus Calms the Storm. And we're looking at Jesus Calms the Storm, looking at where is Jesus in the midst of a storm. So I pick up this story early in Mark. And it's early in Mark, just after Jesus does a ton of teaching. So this is Jesus on the coast, sort of, and Jesus is teaching in parables. He's teaching parables of the sower and parables of the lampstand and of the mustard seed. These are maybe familiar stories to you. This is when Jesus was preaching them. And so there were crowds coming, there were all sorts of people coming. He was becoming very popular, so popular that the crowds were pushing him into the water, actually, and people couldn't hear him. So he hopped on the boat and went out into water. There were so many people there that he had to be on the water to project his voice out. And so after he was done teaching, I don't know, many of you may be teachers or you've done presentations, like seminars. After you're done with that, you're spent, you're done. So the disciples said, hey Jesus, let's go to the other side. Let's get out of here. I don't know exactly why. Maybe there were people on the other side they had an appointment with. Maybe they thought the grass was greener. Maybe they just needed to get away from the people. But here's what's significant. This was a very ordinary trip across the sea. Reading through Mark, there are multiple trips back and forth and back and forth. It doesn't make any sense. I don't quite understand it, other than it's much quicker to ride back and forth than it is to walk around. But this is what Jesus did. And in fact, maybe that's important. It was a very ordinary, normal journey that quickly turned into something rather catastrophic. The Sea of Galilee, this area that so much of the scripture tells a story about, like most all of Jesus' ministry, except for a little bit of time in Jerusalem. all of the time was spent around the Sea of Galilee. So, like, as a kid, I remember thinking it was just this huge expanse and an amazing place, where in reality it's actually kind of a dinky little lake. It's maybe 13 miles across at the longest point, so on a clear day you can see across it quite easily. It's not all that big. And you need to know something about the Sea of Galilee. This is important, that storms came often and frequently, and they were rough. They were this way because, so the Sea of Galilee is like 600 feet below sea level, which is, and because of that, it was a very humid and almost like jungle-like tropical atmosphere. But like as soon as you got away, the mountains spelled up, and there's like 2,000 feet of mountains all around it. So it's like it's a bowl. If you know anything about weather, you have this warm, moist, tropical air hovering right here, and then you have the cool, crisp mountain air. And when they converge, you have boom, right? Big storms. And the Sea of Galilee was this, right? It's a smallish lake, like a couple hundred feet deep, and so the storms would churn up this water much more quickly, much more violently than it would like the deep water. So storms were a big part of the culture, the life there. They knew it, they understood it, they were aware of it. And now, while 8 of the disciples on the boat, while 8 of them had an excuse to be afraid, they were land dwellers, right? 4 of them, we know, spent their life on this lake. 4 of them were fishermen. From the time they could probably walk, they were hanging out on their daddy's boat fishing. They had definitely seen storms on the Sea of Galilee. They had endured storms. They knew storms. They knew what to do. They were not anxious. And yet, in this story, we find that they're scared. And I know that I don't usually personally get scared until the experts start to get a little scared, right? It's like there's bad weather coming in, Ashley's freaking out, and I'm like, it's okay, we're fine until Greg Fishel says it's time to go get the closet. It's like, until the expert gets anxious, I am okay. So this kind of indicates just the severity of the storm, the anxiety that the disciples were feeling. So they lowered the sails, they dropped the anchor, they started bailing water, and it's in the midst of this panic and this delirium and this anxiety that they start looking around and say, hey, where's Jesus? Where is Jesus in this storm? I get the idea that we don't really get a feeling for the sense of panic for 2 reasons, quick reasons. One, because we know how the story ends, all right? So we've heard it from a very young age that Jesus calms the storm and they're all fine. So we know how it ends, so we don't get too anxious. And then 2, we don't know exactly what it means to be caught in a storm on the Sea of Galilee. So one of the scholars I read kind of equated it to this: hopping on a commuter flight, maybe something simple like, I don't know, Atlanta. A bad storm coming up, both the engines failing, and you're sitting duck. This is the kind of anxiety, this is the turmoil that the disciples are struggling through. Surely we are perishing, we are dying. It's a present tense, we are dying. In the midst of the terror, the disciples probably stumble back to this little 26-foot boat to find Jesus asleep on a pillow in the middle of the storm, scared for their lives. And just after Jesus had spent all of this day teaching, preaching, communicating the love of God, how God is there for you, how much God loves you, how much God is going to do anything God can to care for you. Jesus had been just preaching this all day long, and now they're in a place where they need God, and God's asleep. You can imagine them wondering, did I leave my life? Did I leave everything that I work for, my family, my job, for this? A sham, a scam, a fraud, to sleep in the back of the boat. They're upset that Jesus is not concerned about them, rightfully so, but it's interesting to note they don't ask Jesus to do anything about it. Maybe because they don't know what Jesus can do about it. Maybe they're skeptical. But they asked this. They said, Jesus, do you not care that we are perishing? I can make a pretty strong claim to say they appreciate anything Jesus can do, but they don't expect Jesus to do anything. They said, Jesus, do you not care? God, do you not care about me? The phrase has been on the thoughts and lips of maybe most every person that's ever lived, every person of faith, maybe even if you don't understand faith. Wondering why it is God seems that It seems that God's not there, maybe even denying the existence of God because you don't know where He is. Maybe your storm is one chapter of a book of your life. Maybe it seems like your whole book of a life is just one storm right after another. Every chapter is a storm. There's no calm days. Or maybe you're looking toward the storm that's forming in the horizon, one that's coming maybe more quickly than you would expect, and you're anxious about what it's going to do to your life. Worried how hard it's going to hit. And so we say, God, do you not care? Storms are chaotic. They consume all of our waking hours, all of our sleeping hours. They, if we let them push us into a frenzy of panic, of anxiety. So when Jesus walked the earth like 2,000 years ago, storms were associated with demonic forces. It didn't quite understand like the weather, how things happen. And so when they didn't understand, they attributed it to evil, to demons, to whatever you want to understand this. And so storms in the Near Eastern mythology were thought to be demonic forces that brought chaos. And so in the Assyrian and Babylonian mythology, the storm demons were known as Shedu, and which were thought to bring chaos to life. And it makes sense, like the storm demons would come and sink boats, and because of that, their loved ones would die, and storms would flood the land, and the crops would be done, and so these storm demons bring chaos. So yeah, these disciples were good Jews. They knew the law. They were aware. And yet they lived in the culture that knew about storm demons of chaos. And so they say, Jesus, do you not care? But I feel safe to say most of us today don't ascribe to this idea of a storm demon. If you do, maybe we should talk later. But I do know that you know chaos. You know chaos. I have some days that I lie down at night to go to sleep that I feel like I literally just got out of the bed. I've been running so hard, getting everything done, making sure everybody gets what they need, making sure all of my projects are done, all of the contacts are done, all of the food is ready, everything is just overwhelming. It's a state of chaos that I feel like things are just whirling out of control. Chaos is a part of our lives, and whether chaos is a blur in your life, it presents itself in lots of different ways. Chaos is your jam-packed schedule at work, your family projects you have, your work projects you have, getting the kids fed, bathed, put to bed, having dinner ready. All of these things pile onto each other. This is chaos. Chaos is my friend Justin and Amanda, who just lost their 6-month-old baby to a rare form of brain cancer. Chaos is the anxiety, depression, mental health struggles we all struggle through. Chaos is a medical diagnosis which will alter your life forever. Chaos is staring at an empty bottle again. Chaos is a walk of shame turned into a normal stroll. Chaos is clearing the internet history. Chaos is obsessing over your body image. Chaos is sleeping on the couch. Again, chaos is a parent's cold fist, a cold presence, an empty promise. Chaos is worry. Worry about children, about friends, about family, spouse, parents, reputation. Chaos is worry. We may not think about a storm demon, but we know what chaos is. Jesus, do you not care? Like the disciples, in the midst of chaos, we look desperately. Like the disciples in the chaos, we look desperately for some sense of grounding, some sense of hope, some sense of healing, some sense of somebody cares about me, that my life is not whirling out of control, that I can feel grounded. See, we've become so wrapped up in our chaos, whatever it is. We become so wrapped up in it that that's all we can see. And because of that, eventually we start to lose sight of God. It feels like God's not even there. And so we say, do you not care, God? In this moment of the story, Jesus calming the storm, Jesus brings peace, affirmation, brings hope. Jesus stands up to the disciples and says, don't be afraid, I'm here. And then he turns to the howling wind, the rain, the thunder, and he says, shouts, peace, be still. When he commands peace, be still, the Greek phrase that literally means be muzzled or gagged, as though the storm were a manic demon that had to be bound and restrained. You see, bringing order to chaos is what God does. That's how the earth was formed, that God brought order to the chaos. That's the work of Jesus in coming to the earth, God bringing order to chaos. And it's what God does every day in our lives. God comes into our lives, is already there, and says, peace, be still, and brings order to the chaos. You know, in the binding of the demon, this chaos, this storm, however you want to understand it, the situation doesn't necessarily just go away. The chaos is still there, straining at the chains of restraint, almost like a rabid dog trying to get after you, trying to get at you. But in that moment, Jesus' words, peace, be still, it's ordered, and you know that God is with you. He's right there present with you, suffering with you, caring for you, aware of you, looking out for you, alongside you. Sometimes Jesus may even be carrying you through chaos. You've just been too blinded by the chaos to find Jesus. John Wesley, maybe a familiar name to you, pretty popular guy around here, was the founder of what became known as the Methodist movement, now the Methodist Church. Wesley was just an incredible man of faith. He was constant, almost obsessive faith, maybe. He was constantly aware of Jesus' presence, always looking for ways to connect people to God. He rode, it's recorded, he rode 250,000 miles on horseback, probably not the same horse, but different throughout his lifetime, 250,000 miles. He recorded that he wrote 40,000 sermons. A lot of them are recorded, and we have them. But I say this to say